Hey everybody, my name is Ruben Liu and I'm a photographer and videographer based in Malaysia. The Canon EOS M50 has been around for a while now, but it's still a camera that I recommend to people who are interested to start in their creative journey into taking photos and also making videos. So a couple of years ago, I made this video about my settings for the Canon EOS M50, and until today, it's still my most watched video on this channel. Yes, I've not been active and things like that, so I guess that's the reason why it's so popular. But yeah, it's been 3 years since I picked up the camera and showed my settings for it, and I thought I should give an update as to what I use my Canon EOS M50 for nowadays, and about how it's still a pretty powerful camera even for today's standards. Of course, the Canon EOS M50 has been updated to the Canon EOS M50 Mark II now, but what I share is more or less applicable for both the cameras. If you can get the Mark II, of course there'll be more stuff inside that camera that makes the M50 a bit more of a capable camera. So the Canon EOS M50 was packed with exactly what I was looking for in a mirrorless camera at that point in time. It was compact and had great features that worked for both photos and videos. As someone who jumps between both very often, it was perfect for me. After I bought the camera, it was my workhorse for all my jobs for about 1 year before I picked up my R. So you can actually see the Canon EOS M50 right here, right now. I'll be explaining what I use it for, and probably you could probably see how you could also utilize this camera, this capable camera, for your own work as well. So without further ado, here's my updated settings for my Canon EOS M50, depending on the situation I'm in. So feel free to jump to each section depending on what you're searching for. So with the introduction of the Canon Webcam Utility, my M50 has been sitting next to my computer as my webcam, as you can probably see here. I have it propped up on a small friction arm and the 22mm lens, so I can create some sort of depth of field whenever I'm having a conference calls with clients and team members. All you need to do is to get it set up is to have the Webcam Utility software installed into your computer. Either Windows or Mac is fine. A micro USB-A cable for the M50 in particular, and you're good to go. Essentially what I have it hooked up right now, the Canon EOS M50, as you can see over here, it has a 22mm lens, and the USB-A cable right here is hooked into my monitor right over here. And so that powers my entire conference calls all the time. You can take a screenshot of my settings here, but I've gone for a very muted look for my calls, mainly because I prefer not to have too much contrast on my face, and also I've also positioned my camera about 2.5 feet away from me, since it's 22mm lens on a crop sensor, so it's similar to like a 50mm anyways. My shootings are normally auto ISO unless it is somewhere in the evening, because I have a big window right here that changes lighting, so I would change it accordingly. My shutter is at 1/50 because I'm shooting at 25 frames, and my aperture is set as wide as possible at f2. So in terms of my picture profile, it's set at neutral, and the sharpness and strength is at 0, contrast is at -4, saturation -4, color tone -4. I try to keep my white balance on auto. So far has been working well for me in most situations. I do intend to beef up my video call setup with some lighting and things like that, but that will depend on how much longer this work from home thing is going to last, because I hope to be able to get back to my studio or my office so that I'll be able to take calls from there. I'm also using the Dell XPS 15 over here, and for those of you who know that laptop, it actually has a very terrible nose cam, so that's why I needed this option. And yeah, my quality of my calls with my clients has been tremendously improved because of this the last few months actually, since the software came up. So because of the compactness of the EOS M50, it makes it very easy to use for travel. I actually picked up my camera just before my trip to Australia, and yeah, you can probably see a few clips here and there. And since I've not gone to many more interesting places since then, due to the pandemic and things like that, here's some footage from those good times when we could actually travel. Despite bringing along 3 lenses from my trip, I found myself sticking to the kit lens, actually the 15-45 kit lens, most of the time. I think this was mainly because the trip wasn't about taking remarkable photos or taking things for selling or jobs and things like that, but more about preserving memories. I didn't want to waste time switching lenses and wanted to enjoy the moment itself. I brought along a variable ND filter, but only used it I think once throughout the entire trip. In the end, the trip was about enjoying the moment. I also had the peak design capture clip either on my bag itself, right here, or on my belt buckle with me, so that my camera was always an arm's reach away. I had 3 batteries with me, but with my battery preserving settings, which I will talk about more later, I used about 2 batteries a day. Yeah. So I made 2 main changes to my camera settings, which you probably saw from my previous videos. I switched off the auto switch between the viewfinder and the screen. Basically, I don't like that. I don't like the auto mode because I end up activating without realizing. So what I do instead is that I program my left button on my camera to switch between viewfinder and the screen. And what I also do is that I program the down button on the D-pad of my M50 to put my camera to sleep. So whenever I was walking around, my camera is just technically just snoozing until I half press the shutter button to wake it up. I also shot in JPEGs and had my videos recorded in Full HD at 50 frames per second in case I wanted to slow things down whenever I edited it. Ironically, I've not released any videos from that time, but maybe with the lockdown here again in Malaysia, I'll find time again. Another great feature was the Wi-Fi transfer, which meant that posting on Instagram was actually quite instant. Near the end of the day, I would be downloading photos into my phone and then sharing with my friends and things like that. So we use Google Drive to kind of share photos with each other all the time. So another way I use the EOS M50 is for gimbal work. The lightweightness and the size of the M50 means that it works well on many gimbals with a weight limit and things like that. But most of the time I have it on my Tech A2000, which I bought many years ago. Being light means I can handle the gimbal for longer periods of time without any fatigue and strain on my arms and back. Yeah, that's a very major point because there was once I used a gimbal for like 4 or 5 hours and you can actually feel the strain on your back after a long while. And it's good to also take care of your posture because if you cannot work, you cannot earn. So I usually shoot my gimbal work with the 15 to 45 kit lens, mainly because of the field of view. Wide view is needed, especially on a crop sensor. And again, I'll usually record at Full HD at 50 frames per second so that I can always smoothen the footage in post. The thing I like most about the Tech A2000 is that it comes with both the single arm and the dual arm setup in the box. So when I'm working on set, I usually use the dual arm, but if I'm using the gimbal sporadically, like for example during weddings, I will actually have the gimbal set up as a single arm and park the side somewhere while I use my R as a main camera. So whenever I need to get a gimbal shot, I just quickly grab the A2000 with the M50 on top, switch it on and quickly go and get that moving gliding shot and put it away again and take back my R. In most of my shoots nowadays, I use my M50 as a second safe shot. It's usually recording the wider shot while I get closer with my R since I have the tighter lens on my R as well. I've also used my M50 as a time-lapse camera. I have the time-lapse mode saved in the quick settings so that I can always get to it as soon as possible. So essentially the M50 is a nice and compact do-everything camera. Does it have its shortcomings? Sure. But I don't have that many complaints for a camera at this price range, to be totally honest. But I have to say, I feel like the M series of cameras have been overshadowed by the Canon R series, and the amount of lenses coming out for the R cameras leaves much envy to any M users. But if you are a casual user, you won't technically need so many lenses. Personally, I would like to see a nice wide-angle fast lens for the M series, but that's about it. Since the pandemic, I've actually pivoted my studio to work on some live streaming projects. I would love to be able to use my M50 for this type of work, but unfortunately, there isn't a clean HDMI output on this camera, but I think the M50 Mark II has it, and I wonder if it's possible to get in the future software update. Please Canon, let me update my M50. But other than these two main things, I don't really have many complaints about the EOS M50. Sure, the lack of usable 4K can be seen as a letdown, but realistically, do all of us really need 4K enabled devices? How many of us actually have 4K enabled screens? The features packed in the M50 and its new sibling, the M50 Mark II, really makes this camera a no-brainer to recommend to people looking to enter into this creative space. It's easy to use and has all the functions that you need to get started in photography and video production. Personally, even though I have the Canon EOS R with me now, for my big projects, big budget projects and things like that, the M50 still has a special place in my kit and my heart. It represents my first major move into the mirrorless world and was the camera that I purchased on my journey to become a Canon EOS Youth Ambassador. In many ways, this camera has a lot of nostalgic value to me, and while the grip might be slightly worn out and there are scuff marks around it all the time, my M50 will be my favorite camera to bring with me when I don't want to work. Thanks for sticking to the end. I hope this video has been helpful to you, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I know I don't post very often, but I'm working on a few things to help me improve that. Yeah. So a little bit of disclaimers along the way. While I am a Canon EOS Youth Ambassador, I've not been told or commissioned by Canon to say anything about this camera. I personally love this camera to bits, and I've actually recommended it to like many friends, and I think I actually managed to sell a few. So that's it for now. I'll see you guys soon. Until then, stay home, stay safe, and stay sane, guys. Bye.